I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Karen McFarlane.
If you are a well-funded startup or maybe even a small business, small and medium-sized business that has a couple of junior members on the team, they don't understand what that scope needs to be. And so when you hire a fractional marketer, or a fractional CMO rather, you are hiring them also to define that scope for you. That's where your strategic vision is really important. They need to understand your business, they need to understand your goals, and they need to understand what it's going to take in this role as the fractional CMO to get there.
Karen McFarlane is the founder and CMO of Kaye Media, a fractional marketing firm for startups to enterprises. With over 25 years of experience, Karen is renowned for her transformative, purpose-driven brand strategies and has been recognized for her leadership and deep commitment to equity and belonging. She serves on several boards and is a celebrated thought leader in inclusive marketing and conflict resolution. My interview with Karen McFarlane is coming right up. But first,
as a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Ian Truscott hosts a great podcast called Rockstar CMO. Ian, tell us what these fine folks will get when they listen.
Well, Jason, I'm no rock star, but I've picked up a thing or two over the last 20 years on my tour from sysadmin to CMO, and each week I chat with the true rock stars, my fabulous guests and chums, and share what we call marketing street knowledge to inspire our listeners in a rock star.
Amazing. Where can people subscribe?
Go to rockstarcmo.com, find the show at marketingpodcast.net, or search for Rockstar CMO FM wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard him. Go subscribe.
Karen McFarlane, welcome to On Brand.
Thank you for having me, Nick. Appreciate being on with you today.
Yeah, I am so excited to chat. I think I could be wrong on this, but I think you are our first fractional CMO, fractional marketing firm on the show, and I'm fascinated by this space. So, talk a bit about. People that listen to the show know that I love doing a deep dive on words. And I think this is such a unique set of words, the idea of fractional marketing. Talk about the intentionality behind that choice and why that speaks to you as a marketer.
Well, I love being the first, so thank you for that. So in terms of fractional marketing, really, it's for organizations typically anywhere from, like you said, startups to enterprises that need deep expertise that can operate at the speed of business, right? They come in, they know marketing really, really well. The thing they might not know as well is your business, right? Depending on, what previous industries me or other fractional marketers have worked in, but they can apply basic principles and, complex principles to your business really quickly and get you moving, get you going, and getting you meeting your goals quicker than you probably would if you had to hire maybe, a full-time person or a contractor of some sort, depending on their level of expertise. It's also really great if you are a well-funded startup. You need to build in that expertise pretty quickly. You don't have time to ramp up. You need to make those numbers. And so there's various different use cases for a fractional marketer. In my particular case, the way that I approach it is typically there are three different scenarios. You're a well-funded startup, you're starting your team, or you are a mid-sized business, you've hired junior marketers and you need someone who has real strategic vision, or you're an enterprise and you have a fully baked team, but they may not have the bandwidth or the expertise in a certain discipline or for a certain project that you need to get going fast.
That is such a great point and important because, I always say that I've yet to talk to a marketer that has the exact budget that they want, the exact team that they want. We are all struggling to do more with less today. And I think because of that, we need to think differently about what our marketing team looks like. And being able to bring in that expertise in a nimble way seems like something that more should consider because it could be a really great fit. If folks out there are struggling with what that might look like, okay, well, I could try that, but I'm not familiar with it. How do you start a fractional engagement? Like you said, it's you have deep expertise in a subject matter area, but maybe not as deep an expertise on the organization itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's really first starting from a strategic point of view and trying to understand your needs and where you need to be, right? As if you are, for instance, an enterprise and you're the CMO or you're a startup CEO, you're looking at the future, right? You're trying to understand, where your service or product needs to go and how are you going to get there and what people you need to put in place to facilitate that goal. And if your runway is fairly short or you really need to pack your house with strategic vision, that's when you should start to look for sort of fractional marketing engagements. Now, the nuance here, at least how I operate, is that it's not really a consultancy in the traditional sense, right? The fractional marketer is acting as your head of marketing, right? So they're deeply ingrained in your business. They're just bringing that deep level of expertise at the very forefront. They are attending strategic meetings. They may be managing teams. They may be doing all of these things. And they may only be doing it for a short period of time, depending on what your runway is. They may also be building your teams, right? So, the thing there is you really need to understand what you need as an organization, right? And then try to filter back from there.
So it almost seems like from what you were saying too, more than, as a different angle on traditional outsourcing consulting, it is accomplishing like you said, could be accomplishing a very specific task or a specific aspect from strategy to team building. It seems like it requires a good definition of scope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But oftentimes, if I'm being honest, right, organizations don't really understand unless you are an enterprise that already has a head of marketing, right? If you are a well-funded startup or maybe even a small and medium-sized business that has, a couple of junior members on the team, they don't understand what that scope needs to be. Right. And so when you sometimes hire a traditional marketing consultant, you really need to understand what that scope is. When you hire a fractional marketer or a fractional CMO, rather, you are hiring them also to define that scope for you. Right. And so that's where your strategic vision is really important. They need to understand your business. They need to understand your goals, and they need to understand what it's going to take in this role as the fractional CMO to get there. My goal is not about billing hours per se, right? It's really about the outcome that we're trying to achieve. I might be setting those goals for myself, and then I need to decide how much time and what resources the organization or my team is going to need to get there. So there's a lot of trust built in to this model as well.
Oh, say more about that.
Well, if you might not know what exactly you need, right? But you do understand, you have to trust that the person is going to lead you in the right direction, that they are focused on your business. They're not focused just on self, if that makes sense, right? And so you have to hire a leader who demonstrates that to you through their previous work, obviously their references, but also in the partnership and the connection that they have when you're meeting with them and interviewing them and, trying to decide if this is going to be a good member for your team. You're also baking them into your culture, right? Because they're not going to be this outside person. They're really going to be an insider that's influential in the C-suite, right? And so when you think about engaging that person, engaging any member of your C-suite team, it's inherently based on this trust that you need to have in them, that they're going to perform for you and your company to win in the way that you want to win.
I love that point, and I think that it is key to really map out that area because like you said, you are acting more like a part of the team. So looking for connection points with other team members, with organizational culture is critical. That seems like it might be harder than one might think.
I guess it can be. Yeah, it's much more work, right? But
Yeah.
for me personally, I describe myself as being very nosy, right? So even if I'm working, if I'm just working on a portion of the business, I really like to know everything because even though it might not be my purview, I want whatever I'm working on to ladder up to the broader objective. And I might have some insights or perspectives that are going to help you in different ways. So in many ways, for me, I don't like to be limited. I want to know the company, the people, the product, the solution. I want to know everything as if I'm there. See, one of my secret powers in this whole engagement is that many times you forget that I'm fractional, right? You actually think that I'm part of the team, officially part of the team. And I have to sometimes remind people, by the way, I don't actually work here. But in some ways, that's a good problem to have. And in some ways, it could get a little squidgy sometimes. But that's really where I think the most successful fractional marketers is that they're not always this outside source. They bring outside expertise. They can always reference, previous engagements, projects, experiences, and bring those to the table because they're fresh. And you're also working with other organizations at the same time. So you are not just laser focused on one organization, depending on your bandwidth, obviously, right? But you are actually collecting information from different organizations and leveraging them for individual engagements, which makes you more of a powerhouse in that sense.
On Brand will be right back after this.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Sean Swaim hosts a great podcast called SEO Last Week. Sean, tell us what these fine folks will get when they listen.
Anybody who listens to SEO Last Week will get all the updates of what's going on in the world of SEO in about 15-20 minutes or so. So that way you can stay up to date with what's going on Google without having to dig through 60 different blogs to do so.
That is super useful. Where can people subscribe?
Hey, we try to keep things simple. You can subscribe at Marketing Podcasts with that second S.net, or you could just search for SEO Last Week wherever you get your podcasts from.
You heard him, folks. Go subscribe. You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Sarah Panous hosts a great podcast called Marketing with Empathy. Sarah, tell us what these fine folks will get when they listen.
Marketing with Empathy is a weekly podcast, and it's designed for brand content marketers who want to connect with their audiences through storytelling and are looking for help to do it better, plus enjoy that recognition, growth, and just joy that comes from creating great work.
Awesome. Where can people subscribe?
Yeah, head on over to marketingpodcast.net and you will see the Marketing with Empathy show there. Otherwise, wherever you listen to podcasts, you'll find Marketing with Empathy.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
Now, back to the show. So I want to talk more about your work as president of the New York chapter of AMA and all of the work that you did around inclusive marketing there as well. It seems like it is very much you hear this with leadership, and you've got a lot of experience with that, but the right leader for the right time with this particular challenge. Talk about your work leading this big group and taking on something this big.
Okay, I could talk about this for days, but I'll try to be succinct, right? It has, it has been quite the ride, right? Because I'm a Black woman, and I have been focused on diversity, equity, inclusion in a very different way throughout my own lifetime, right? In how I experience the world. And but in 2020, when the whole national dialogue changed around George Floyd, it actually opened up the opportunity for more of us to have this dialogue. These dialogues weren't just happening in small groups. They were now happening out in the open, and people seemingly wanted to right some wrongs and take some real action to make change, which was very empowering, right? Because you now are having these conversations, these difficult conversations, and oftentimes uncomfortable conversations out loud. But what I realized was I was no longer the person uncomfortable, right? It was other groups that were uncomfortable, right? And so that really changed the dynamic of how to approach diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in society, and also specifically in marketing. And so really what came out of that for me is that, marketing has the power and influence to make a difference. And we just need to realize that power and influence, right? Recognize it and use it. And so now what I'm really focused on is helping marketers understand that power and influence, not to be frightened by it, right? But to use it not only for the power of good, but for business, right? The power of, your job, which is primarily, right, to drive whatever the goals are, usually revenue, right, or stakeholder value. And it can be used to bolster all the things that you have been doing, right, with only some slight changes to your normal operating procedures, right? It really requires you to think differently, act a little differently, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming, right? And so that's where my focus has been. I started this movement within AMA with 6 other individuals. It started with what we called a chapter DEI pledge. There were over 70 chapters of the American Marketing Association. So I started this while I was president. And we routinely got around 66% of chapters to sign this pledge. And it sparked this ongoing conversation within the marketing community. And today, there's also an organization called the Professional Chapters Council of AMA, which is really this liaison between the chapters and the national organization. I'm the president-elect. I co-chair the DEI committee. And today that committee is almost 100 people. When it started a couple years ago, it was maybe almost 20, right? And so that is showing that, marketers really care, and they want to learn, and they want to do better and exercise their power and influence. And I'm really proud of that ongoing work that we're doing there.
That is great, and I love what you said. All of that, but especially that approach, because I found it very empowering. And I feel like a lot of times we as marketers tend to think of these conversations grounded in fear of, I don't want to do the wrong thing. But I love how you said, recognizing the power that we marketers have, because more than not doing anything wrong or making sure we're doing X, Y, and Z, it is about the power we have to influence that conversation. And the images that we show are and bring to life, even if in service of a brand, play a role in the cultural zeitgeist as well. And I think recognizing that is, again, very empowering.
Yeah, I started this work not just with my own opinion, right, but with talking to marketers. So I first started with a focus group where 100 marketers showed up, and there were quite a few themes, but fear, as you just mentioned, was a huge theme. And another aspect that came out of it was that leadership support is necessary. So for all the things that they were really concerned about, representation, education, level of understanding and what to do, what success metrics are, fear resonated to the top, but they needed leadership to provide direction.
Yeah.
So I started talking to CMOs, right? And I actually just wanted to talk to them to understand, what they thought their role was in inclusive marketing, and held a couple of focus groups to, extract that information. And what came out of that was so incredibly rich that I actually wrote a report about what they said. Now, I didn't tell them that I was going to do that. So I had to go back to them and be like, listen, I took everything you said and I put it in a report, but I anonymized it because you didn't really agree to that. Can you read this and let me know if you have any objections? And to my surprise, I had interviewed 25 CMOs initially. Half of them came back, did another session with me, and provided even more fodder. And we created the first marketing's role in creating an inclusive future report back in 2021. And through those conversations and ongoing conversations, I also started talking to chief diversity officers, because one of the themes that came out of this first report was that, marketing, again, has that power and influence. We're the voice of the customer. We're the face of the brand, right? We have this responsibility, but we can't do it alone, but we can lead, and we can partner with our chief diversity officers to do so. So I started talking to them about, how the two groups can work together. And what came out of all of these conversations is this new framework that I created called the Marketing Influence Matrix for DEI. And there are 12 different areas of opportunity for marketing to influence diversity, equity, inclusion. So this first report that I just talked about was really around workforce diversity, because that's where people's minds were at the time. And the next one that is coming out in January is on supplier diversity. And I talked to another 25 CMOs about that. And some of the insights there were really eye-opening. But what was really wonderful about quite a few of the conversations was that many of them, while some organizations might have had like DEI pillars that they're all working towards, or, varying levels of that, many people said to me, I wasn't thinking about supplier diversity in this way until we had this conversation. So that makes me really happy to know that even one conversation is changing the trajectory of some organizations. And I'm hoping that these ongoing series of reports that I plan to produce will help change that conversation in action as well.
I also want to make sure that we have a bit of time, too, to talk about Colossal Work, your passion project as well.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So this brand is going to launch in January as well, alongside the report that I'm talking about. So basically, it is an extension of these conversations. It is really there to help marketers understand what they can do today in support of their broader corporate goals, right? But how they can bake DEIB into their normal operating procedure, right? So when you're hiring, there's endless information out there about developing your talent pipeline, but also, how to think about that as you think about marketing specifically. And I just talked about the supplier diversity, but all of these things, there's 12 different areas of disciplines that I will be working through in Colossal Work. And it's really the conversation. It's really how you develop partnerships. and also paired with actionable tools. What tools are marketers calling for that Colossal Work can develop for you to execute, right? And activate your power and influence. So I'm really excited about the possibilities for that, and really galvanizing this community around what I believe is their responsibility, or our collective responsibility.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, many of these ideas, you've given me new ways of thinking about things. It has made me smile. Karen, it is now my chance to get to ask you for a brand that has made you smile recently.
I'm going to be a little self-serving here, okay? Because every time I see it, it makes me smile. My new brand, Colossal Work, makes me smile from ear to ear. And I work with a wonderful woman. Her name is Olivia Edwards. She is a brand creative director. And she sat with me so many times to talk about what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. She walked me through this incredible process that really brought this brand to life. I wanted it to reflect who I was, my roots, my personality, and you know, where I wanted to be in 5 to 10 years with this. But I didn't want it to be about me. I just wanted it to reflect me, right? And so she captured that over a period of, I don't know, several months. We had these conversations and walked me through every single step. And when I first saw it, I actually had an emotional reaction to it because she really got it. And so when it comes out in January, I would love everybody to go to colossal.work and check out, I'm going to say our work, because it wouldn't exist without her.
Awesome. Well, that sort of tees up my next question, which was, where can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do? Well, of course, link up to colossal.work, but where can they go right now here to connect and learn more?
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm almost always there. Right? So just find me at LinkedIn/in/Karen McFarlane. That's it. And then you'll find me. You can hit me up there.
Awesome. Well, we will link up to all of that in our show notes, which folks can find at onbrandpodcast.com. Karen McFarlane, thanks for being on brand with us.
Thanks for having me, Nick. This is really fun.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.